Okay, for my presentation, I am going to focus on the legal and judicial analysis towards the Take It Down Act. Okay. This is just an overview of what I'm going to go over. Oh my God. My focus is going to be the Take It Down Act, and this act was signed by President Trump on 19th of May of this year. The bill was passed through a 409 to 2 House vote, which cleared it through the Senate. The main goal was to provide national-wide protection towards technology services, towards unconsensual and violation of media postings. Basically, it includes a notice and removal section, which mandates that covered platforms provide the public with the ability to notify the platform if content was published without consent. This act is beneficial towards victims because it gives them further options to how they can proceed with protecting themselves from non-consensual intimate images. And this requires individuals to take down the unconsensual content within 48 hours. Okay, judicial perspective. For a case to be declared as like plausible or seen as sexual harassment or assault or harm, it has to go through 3 different forms. The first 2 forms focus on adult community standards. The first form focuses on how the content is seen. Is it seen as abnormal, unhealthy, degrading, shameful, and etc. And the second focuses mainly on how it's like perceived and like what type of content is found in it. While the third form focuses on like if the person is found reasonable or if like the matter is taken seriously. Basically, it's determined if it's seen as a form to gain political or scientific value. This also helps to determine the credibility of the individuals involved. A point that I found interesting that they made was that a person will only be guilty of the offense if the reason for disclosing the photograph or one of the reasons is to cause distress to a person depicted in the photograph or film. On the same basis, anyone who retweets or forwards without consent a private sexual photograph or film would only be committing an offense if the purpose or one of the purposes was to cause distress to the individual depicted in the photograph or film who had not consented to the disclosure. Basically, anyone involved is found at fault if their main goal was to cause harm. This related to some degree to the rule of 4. Basically, 4 justices have to agree to hear a case, and I found this very relatable and significant because many times cases are rejected and or dismissed, and through making it through the justice board, it gives them a second chance to be heard, and it gives them a form of hope in my perspective. Societal perspective, through doing my research, I found 2 gaps or 2 sides to this. I found some individuals thought that it violated their freedom of speech, while others wanted to spread more awareness towards it. Through the freedom of speech, something to keep in mind is that the First Amendment protects pornography, but only if it's in terms of like artistic or erotic material. But there are 2 types of pornography that is not protected, and that's obscenity and child pornography. And through the freedom of speech, this type of content is seen as illegal unless it's shown to have harmful, violent, or intended harm towards an individual. On the other opinion, I noticed how it relates a lot to masculinity, manhood, and like self-worth. It also brought up a lot of acknowledgement, how individuals needed to be more aware of the types of areas of sexual harassment that has occurred, because many times people aren't aware of what's happening to them. There's also how pornography has been seen as such a normality, which I find very dangerous, because through pornography it forms this picture in many people's minds, which in the end they could end up causing harm to many people. I also saw the interference of peer pressure and how women were viewed as objects. Basically, their humanity was taken away. Victim's perspective. There was the aspect of psychological and emotional harm. There's also, of course, the absence of consent and their reputation being jeopardized. Basically, in 2018, Reina, an investigative journalist and opinion columnist, she was located in India. She was a victim of pornography deepfake videoing, which basically the goal was to counter her voice or put doubt on her name. And because of this video that was being released, she received countless of rape and death threats, and she did file a complaint, but the case was ultimately closed in August of 2020 because they couldn't find out who had published this film. And many times that's the case. Many times cases are just dismissed because there's nothing they can really do about it. There's also the aspect of mental health, and this was shown through the case of Breeze, and basically they have never consented to appear in a pornographic film, and through a friend she found out that there was numerous videos of her on a popular pornography website, and because of the types of acts that were being shown to the public, she ended up contemplating suicide. And there's also the aspect of revenge and financial threat. The revenge, basically many victims were chosen because they had done something to the perpetrator. If they rejected them, or they put them down in some way. And through financial threat, some victims were in financial crisis in which they relied on someone who they thought they could trust, but in the end they just ended up holding it against them and publishing certain material about them. Patterns. The first pattern in which, when I thought about patterns, I thought a lot about how victims' credibility is seen, and I noticed a lot about how through their appearance, behavior, their ethnicity, their race, gender, their job, their profession, their life's work, what they do with their time, their socioeconomic status, class, their body language. Basically, their life is taken apart to determine if their word is worth anything. I noticed the repetition of bystander interference. I noticed how there's a lot of support network towards survivors. There's a lot more awareness being spread as well. There's also the aspect of societal rejection towards individuals who have spoken about their experiences, mainly through their work environment and the educational setting. There's also the constant use of revenge as a cause to harm, and the aspect of threats and pressure. I also noticed how the main focus was on deepfakes, which are false images and videos created using AI, and basically it includes the likeness of people. Deepfake technology uses learning machinery to produce or alter an existing image or video, usually by mapping the face or body of one individual onto the face or body of another individual. And I found that women were mainly the main targets of these sorts of assaults and harassments. Lastly, judgment and bias. Bias is identified as biases are prejudice in favor or against a thing, person, or group compared with another. Basically, bias equals to prejudging in a positive or negative way, and it's been proven that most biases happen at an unconscious level. Basically, you're not aware that you're doing it. The main form of bias that I noticed was through standard gendered roles, basically in terms if the victim was a male or female. Through women, I noticed that in the workplace, women were expected to stay silent and therefore treated wrongfully, through assumptions that they wouldn't speak, and they were seen as lower, and they were labeled as they wanted it. They weren't believed, they were shamed, they were seen as at fault, they put themselves in that situation. And for males, I noticed that the men were labeled as cowards, as they needed to be in control, that they can't be victims, they were seen as invincible, they were shamed, and many times they were seen as the perpetrators. And ultimately, men who were victims and at the end had to find some way to prove their manhood once again. And these are my resources, and thank you.